This 4-year-old beggar girl gets hurt protecting two unconscious millionaires. But when they wake up, they do something that shocks everyone. Comment what you think will happen and subscribe to my channel to support my work. The screech of metal grinding against concrete echoed through the narrow brick streets of the small Appalachian town like a desperate cry. Willow, only 4 years old, was crouched behind a dumpster when she saw the black SUV careen down the steep hill, spinning twice before slamming violently into the lamppost on the corner of Maple Street. The girl had learned to hide quickly during her 2 years living on the streets. Her bare, dirty feet knew every crack in the sidewalk, every corner where she could find scraps of food or a safe place to sleep. Her tangled auburn hair framed her thin face, and her faded blue hand-me-down dress hung loosely on her small frame. Inside the vehicle, 2 middle-aged men were unconscious. Archibald Archie Lancaster, 58, had a gash on his forehead that bled over his closed eyes. Theodore Teddy Lancaster, 62, was slumped over the steering wheel, his left arm bent at an unnatural angle. They were brothers, owners of the largest furniture factory in the region, known throughout the town. But at that moment they looked like nothing more than 2 fragile, injured men. Willow emerged slowly from her hiding place, looking around cautiously. People began to gather, whispering and pointing, but no one approached the smoking car. She had witnessed many bad things on the streets, and she was afraid of unfamiliar adults. But something in her child's heart compelled her forward. With small, hesitant steps, she approached the driver's side window. Teddy had a trickle of blood running from his mouth, and she gently touched his face with her dirty little hand. Mr., she whispered with her weak, hoarse voice, the voice of someone who rarely spoke. It was then that she heard the shouts behind her. "Get away from there, you dirty kid!" The harsh voice of a young man cut through the air. "She's the one who caused the accident. These street kids are nothing but trouble." A group of 5 boys, between 16 and 20, approached with angry expressions. Ethan, the leader of the group, son of the local hardware store owner, picked up a rock from the ground. "I bet she was trying to steal something and ran in front of the car." "I didn't," Willow tried to protest, but her voice came out even weaker. She cowered between the 2 cars, trying to shield the injured men with her small body. The first rock hit her shoulder, causing her to let out a cry of pain. The second struck her leg, opening a cut that began to bleed on her grimy skin. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she clung to the car door, refusing to leave the unconscious men. "Stop! Please stop!" she cried, but the boys continued throwing rocks and shouting accusations. One of them grabbed a thick branch that had fallen from a nearby tree. Even bleeding and trembling with fear, Willow spread her thin arms, covering as much of the 2 injured men as she could. She didn't understand why she was doing it. She just felt she couldn't abandon them as so many people had abandoned her. Archie was the first to awaken, feeling a stabbing pain in his head. His vision was blurred, but he managed to make out a small figure in front of him, moaning in pain. When his vision cleared, he was shocked to see a bloodied little girl protecting him from a group of aggressive youths. "What are you doing?" His voice was rough but firm, with the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Teddy also awoke at that moment, confused and dizzy. When he saw the scene before his eyes, he felt a strange pang in his chest. That child was hurt because of them, or rather she was hurt defending them. "Mr. Lancaster! Mr. Lancaster!" Ethan dropped the branch immediately, his face pale as he realized he had injured a child in front of the most powerful men in town. We thought she... Get out of here, now!" Archie's voice was laden with a contained fury that made the boys back away. When they were finally alone with the girl, the 2 brothers stumbled out of the wrecked car. Willow was sitting on the ground, hugging her knees, rocking her body back and forth as she always did when she was frightened. Archie knelt in front of her, ignoring his own pain. For 3 years, since he lost his wife Beatrice in a similar accident, he had closed himself off from the world, becoming a bitter and lonely man. But looking at that injured child who had risked everything to protect them, he felt something awaken in his hardened chest. "Why did you do that, sweetie?" he asked with a gentleness he hadn't used in a long time. "Why did you protect us?" Willow raised her large, frightened eyes but didn't answer. She just made a quick drawing in the dirt with her finger, showing two large figures and a small one between them. Teddy, observing the scene, felt the weight of the guilt he had carried for years intensify. He knew that the violent argument they had had in the car about the family inheritance had caused the accident. He knew that his mistakes of the past had consequences, and now an innocent child had been hurt because of them. "We need to get her to a hospital," Teddy said, but when he tried to approach, Willow cowered further, clearly afraid. Archie extended his hand slowly, as he would with an injured animal. "We're not going to hurt you, sweetie. We want to help you." But deep in his eyes, as he watched that girl who had sacrificed herself for two strangers, Archie already knew that his life had changed forever at that moment. What he didn't yet imagine was that the coming months would bring revelations that would shake not only his existence, but that of everyone around him. The town hospital was small, with narrow corridors that smelled of disinfectant and fear. Archie carried Willow in his arms, feeling how light she was for a 4-year-old. The girl hadn't spoken a single word since they left the accident site. She just clung to his shirt with surprising strength. Dr. Samuel Peterson, the only pediatrician in the area, examined Willow's injuries with a worried expression. In addition to the cuts from the rocks, the girl showed clear signs of malnutrition and neglect. Her ribs were visible through her pale skin, and there were old marks from bruises that suggested a difficult life on the streets. "When was the last time she ate a full meal?" asked the doctor, carefully cleaning the wounds. Archie and Teddy exchanged glances. They knew absolutely nothing about that child, only that she had risked her own safety to protect them. "Doctor, she doesn't talk to us," Teddy explained, still feeling dizzy from the accident. "We don't even know her name." "Doctor," Peterson frowned, watching how Willow reacted to his every movement. The girl didn't cry, she didn't scream, she just watched everything with huge eyes that seemed to hold secrets too painful for someone so small. "She's in a state of emotional shock," diagnosed the doctor. "It's common in children who have experienced severe trauma. It may take weeks or months for her to speak normally again." Archie felt a strange pang in his chest. For the 3 years since Beatrice's death, he had convinced himself that he didn't need anyone anymore, that it was easier to live isolated in his mansion, focused only on business. But looking at that injured girl, something inside him shattered. "What now?" he asked. "Where will she go?" "We need to contact Child Protective Services," replied the doctor, "but you know how it works here. She'll probably be sent to some institution in the capital, and with her emotional state—" "No!" The word came out of Archie's mouth before he could think. "She's coming with me." Teddy turned sharply to his brother. "Archie, you can't be serious. A child? After everything that happened to you and Beatrice?" "Exactly because of what happened to Beatrice," replied Archie, his voice low but determined. "I'm not going to abandon this girl as the whole world seems to have done." It was then that Willow did something that surprised everyone. She tugged on Archie's sleeve and with her finger began to draw on the palm of his hand. First a circle, then 2 dots and a curved line downwards. It was a sad face. Dr. Peterson watched, fascinated. "She's trying to communicate. It's a good sign." Archie looked at the drawing on his hand and felt his eyes fill with tears he hadn't shed in years. "You're sad, sweetie." Willow nodded slightly, then drew another face, this time with the line curved upwards, pointing to him. "She says you make her happy," interpreted Teddy, amazed at the way the girl expressed herself. 2 hours later, the brothers left the hospital with a clean Willow, wearing new clothes that Archie had sent for from the town's children's store. The girl held his hand tightly, but her eyes remained alert, watching every movement around her like a cornered animal. The Lancaster mansion stood atop a hill, surrounded by manicured gardens and high walls that offered complete privacy. When they arrived, Beverly Jenkins, the housekeeper of 10 years, waited at the front door with an expression between curiosity and concern. Beverly was a strong woman, 45 years old, with grey hair always pulled back in a severe bun. She had taken care of the house since before Beatrice's death and knew better than anyone Archie's emotional state in recent years. "Mr. Lancaster, what is this?" she asked, looking at Willow with a mixture of tenderness and resistance. "Beverly, this is... well, we don't know her name yet, but she's going to stay with us for a while." The housekeeper felt her heart race. Years ago, she had lost her own daughter Lily in a terrible accident. Since then, she had avoided any contact with children, as the pain was still too intense. "Sir, with all due respect, are you sure about this? A child is a lot of work, and after everything that's happened—" "Don't argue with me about this, Beverly," Archie interrupted, but his voice didn't have its usual harshness. "She needs us." Willow watched the conversation in silence, still clinging to Archie's hand. When Beverly bent down to get to her level, the girl quickly hid behind him. "It's okay, sweetie," said Beverly with a forced gentleness. "I'm not going to hurt you." But Willow just shook her head and clung tighter to Archie's leg. Teddy, who had remained silent throughout the exchange, finally exploded. "Archie, this is insane. You can't just decide to raise a child because you felt guilty about an accident." "Guilty?" Archie turned to his brother, his eyes flashing with anger. "That girl put herself between us and an angry mob. She bled for us, Teddy. And you think it's guilt?" "I think you're being too emotional. What if she has a family? What if someone is looking for her?" The argument began to heat up, and the voices grew louder. It was then that they saw Willow run desperately into the house, looking for a place to hide. They found her crammed inside a broom closet in the hallway, trembling and making repetitive movements with her hands, as if she was trying to calm herself down. "Sweetie, it's okay," whispered Archie, slowly opening the closet door. "No one's going to yell anymore." But when he tried to touch her, Willow began to draw frantically on the closet floor with her finger. First, she drew a large figure with raised arms, then a small figure huddled in the corner, and finally, a closed door. Beverly, watching the drawings, felt a pang in her heart. She's showing someone yelling at her, and her hiding. It was at that moment that everyone understood that Willow's traumas were much deeper than they imagined. The girl had lived through situations that left invisible marks, wounds that didn't appear in medical exams, but that bled in silence. "She needs time," said Beverly, surprising herself with the protectiveness in her voice. "And patience. A lot of patience." That night, Willow refused to sleep alone in the room that Archie had prepared for her. Instead, she made a small bed on the floor next to his bed, using pillows and a blanket. When Archie woke up in the middle of the night, he heard a low sound coming from the floor. Willow was humming a sad melody, almost imperceptible, as she drew something in the air with her fingers. It was the first time in 2 years that she had made any musical sound, a fragment of remembrance from a time when she still believed that someone could take care of her. And as Archie lay listening to that melancholic song, he knew there was no turning back. That child had become part of his life, and he would do anything to protect her. But what none of them knew was that the real challenges were just beginning, and that Willow's past held secrets that would soon come to light in a devastating way. The first rays of sunlight came through the window of Archie's room, illuminating the small figure curled up on the floor. Willow had slept in a fetal position, her little arms protecting her face, as if she still expected someone to hurt her during sleep. Archie watched her for a few minutes before getting up. In the last 3 years, his routine had been mechanical. Wake up, have coffee alone, go to the factory, come back late and sleep. Now, for the first time in a long time, he felt uncertain about how to start the day. "Sweetie," he called softly, crouching down beside her. "It's time for breakfast." Willow opened her eyes slowly, and for a moment seemed not to recognize where she was. Her body tensed, ready to flee, until she saw Archie's gentle face. In the kitchen, Beverly had prepared a hearty table, but watched the scene with conflicting feelings. Seeing a child in that space rekindled pains she had tried to bury for years. "She needs to eat," said Beverly, placing a plate with scrambled eggs, buttered bread, and milk in front of Willow. The girl looked at the food with suspicion, On the streets, she had learned that what seemed good wasn't always safe. With hesitant movements, she picked up a small piece of bread and smelled it before eating. "Is it good?" asked Archie, trying to encourage her. Willow nodded timidly but ate very slowly, as if fearing the food would be taken away from her at any moment. "Beverly," said Archie, "I need you to keep her company today. I have important meetings at the factory." "Mr. Lancaster," the housekeeper hesitated. "I don't know how to take care of a child. It's been so long." "You'll remember," he replied, but his voice carried a sadness that Beverly knew well. They had both lost important people and were trying to rebuild their lives. When Archie left for work, the house became strangely silent. Beverly tried to occupy herself with household chores, but felt Willow's eyes following her everywhere. The girl had found a piece of charcoal in the garden and began drawing on the paving stones. First, she drew a small house, then a female figure with long hair, and finally, a smaller figure next to her, holding hands. "Who's that, honey?" asked Beverly, watching the drawing. Willow pointed to the larger figure and then to herself, indicating the smaller one. Then she took the charcoal and scribbled violently over the drawing, erasing the figure of the woman. Beverly felt her heart clench. "Did your mommy leave?" The girl nodded sadly and then did something that caught Beverly off guard. She drew a new figure next to hers, this time with her hair pulled back and an apron, clearly representing Beverly. "Do you want me to be your friend?" asked Beverly, fighting back tears. Willow smiled for the first time since arriving at the house, a small but genuine smile that melted the housekeeper's defenses. Meanwhile, at the furniture factory, Archie was having trouble concentrating. Teddy had arrived an hour later, still wearing bandages from the accident injuries. "How did she spend the night?" asked Teddy, genuinely concerned. "Slept on the floor in my room. Didn't want to be alone," replied Archie, absently reviewing some contracts. "Archie, we need to talk seriously about this. You can't just adopt a child without knowing anything about her. What if she has family looking for her?" What if what, Teddy?" Archie interrupted, annoyed. "What if she's better off than with people who abandoned her on the streets to die?" "That's not what I'm saying. It's just that you're getting attached too quickly. Remember how you were when you lost Beatrice. Remember how you almost—" "Don't finish that sentence," warned Archie, getting up abruptly. "This is completely different." Teddy sighed, carrying the weight of the guilt that had tormented him for years. He knew that his tendency to always point out problems had cost the family dearly in the past. He was the one who had told their father about their mother's affair, causing a devastating separation that was never overcome. "I just want to prevent you from suffering again," he said more softly. "Maybe it's time for me to stop running from suffering and learn to live with it," replied Archie. Back at the mansion, something extraordinary was happening. Willow had discovered the back garden, where Beatrice used to plant her favorite flowers. The space had been abandoned for 3 years, with dead plants and weed-filled beds. Beverly found her kneeling beside a bed, digging in the dirt with her small hands. The girl had found some old seeds in a shed and was trying to plant them. "What are you doing, honey?" Willow showed the seeds, and then pointed to the sky, making gestures that indicated growth. Then she drew a large, beautiful flower in the dirt. "You want to plant flowers?" asked Beverly, touched by the girl's initiative. Willow nodded energetically and continued digging. It was the first time she had shown active interest in something. The first time she seemed to have hope that something could grow and flourish. Beverly knelt beside her and began to help. "You know, Mr. Lancaster's wife loved this garden. She used to say that plants were like people. Sometimes they need a fresh start to grow strong." As they worked together, Beverly began to tell stories about Beatrice, about how kind she was, and how she cared for each plant as if it were a treasure. Willow listened attentively, and although she didn't speak, her expression showed that she understood every word. When Archie arrived home that night, he found the two in the garden, dirty with dirt, but smiling. Willow ran to him and pulled him by the hand, eager to show him what they had planted. "She wants to make a garden," explained Beverly. "She found some old seeds and decided to plant them." Archie looked at the small furrows in the dirt. imagining how happy Beatrice would be to know that her garden would come back to life. "That's a good idea, sweetie, but it will take a while for the flowers to grow." Willow made a quick drawing in the dirt. A small seed, then a sprout, then a flower. Then she pointed to herself and smiled. It was at that moment that Archie understood that the girl wasn't just planting seeds, she was planting hope. She believed that, just like the flowers, she too could grow and flourish in that place. That night, for the first time, Willow agreed to sleep in her own bed, in the room that Archie had prepared. But before lying down, she made one more drawing, this time on a piece of paper that Beverly had given her. The drawing showed 3 figures, a tall man, a woman in an apron, and a little girl. Everyone was smiling, surrounded by colorful flowers. At the bottom, with her still childish writing, she had tried to write a word: family. Beverly showed the drawing to Archie, and both felt their eyes fill with tears. In just 2 days, that silent girl had managed to touch the hearts of 2 people who thought they had lost forever the ability to love. But what they didn't know was that a few miles away, a desperate woman had just left a rehab clinic looking for the daughter she had abandoned in a moment of despair 2 years ago. And that search would soon reach the mansion on the hill, bringing with it revelations that would shake the small family that was forming. 3 weeks had passed since Willow arrived at the mansion, and a delicate routine began to take shape. The girl still didn't speak, but her drawings became more elaborate and colorful. She had found crayons in an old cabinet and now created true silent stories on paper. That morning, Archie watched Willow have breakfast when he noticed something that worried him. The girl was eating normally when suddenly she dropped her fork and cowered in her chair, staring fixedly at the kitchen door as if expecting someone to enter at any moment. "What is it, sweetie?" he asked, following her gaze. Willow picked up a piece of paper and quickly drew a woman with long, disheveled hair, big eyes, and an angry expression. Then she drew the same woman holding the hand of a small figure, pulling her away from a house. Beverly, who was preparing lunch, stopped what she was doing to observe the drawing. "Honey, is that your mummy?" Willow nodded, but her whole body was trembling. She picked up the red crayon and began to scribble violently over the figure of the woman, tearing the paper with the force of her movements. "Did she hurt you?" asked Archie, feeling anger rising in his chest. The girl shook her head, confused. She picked up a blue crayon and drew tears falling from the woman's face. Then she drew herself, also crying, but stretching her little arms towards the maternal figure. "She was sad," interpreted Beverly. "But you loved her anyway." Willow nodded vigorously, and then did something that broke the hearts of the 2 adults. She kissed the drawing in the place where she had drawn her mother's face, even after having scribbled over it so angrily. Meanwhile, in the neighboring town of Oak Ridge, Brenda Oliveira, 28, walked the streets with a crumpled piece of paper in her hand. She had been clean for 6 months, working as a cleaning lady at the rehab clinic where she had checked herself in, but the pain of having abandoned her daughter consumed her every day. Brenda had been a good mother in the first 2 years of Willow's life. She worked as a domestic worker, lived in a small but clean room, and dreamed of giving her daughter a better life. Everything changed when she met Roger, a man who seemed gentle, but who introduced her to the world of drugs. Addiction was swift and devastating. In a few months, Brenda lost her job, her house, and found herself living on the streets with a small child. It was on an especially cold night, when Willow was sick and crying from hunger, that Brenda made the most painful decision of her life. She left the girl sleeping near the town's church, with a note explaining that she could no longer take care of her. Now 6 months clean and with a clear mind, Brenda couldn't live with the weight of that decision. She had looked for Willow in every orphanage in the region, but no one knew how to provide information about a 4-year-old girl who had appeared alone. "Please," she begged everyone she met, "have you seen a small girl, auburn hair, big eyes? She's my daughter." It was Mrs. Gable, the owner of the bakery where Brenda bought bread, who gave her the first real clue in months. "Girl with that description. I did see one. But she wasn't alone. She was with the Lancaster brothers, those from the furniture factory. I heard they took a child home after that accident on Maple Street. Brenda's heart raced. She knew the reputation of the Lancasters, rich and powerful men who could give her daughter everything she never managed to offer. But they were also strangers, and the fear that something bad might be happening to Willow made her desperate. Back at the mansion, Teddy had arrived earlier from work and found Archie playing with Willow in the garden. The older brother was teaching the girl how to tie the laces of a pair of new shoes he had bought for her. "Like this, sweetie," said Archie patiently. "First you make a loop, then—" Willow tried to imitate the movements, but her small hands still had difficulty. When she finally managed to make a crooked bow, she clapped silently and ran to show Teddy. "Very good, smart girl," said Teddy, forcing a smile. But his expression was tense, and Archie noticed immediately. "What's wrong? We need to talk." Alone. Archie asked Beverly to stay with Willow and accompanied his brother to the study. Teddy closed the door and turned with a grave expression. "I hired a private investigator," he said bluntly. "You did what?" Archie got up abruptly from the chair. "We needed to know the truth about her, Archie. About the family, about how she ended up on the streets, and I found things you need to know." Teddy opened a folder with documents and photographs. "Her real name is Willow Oliveira. The mother's name is Brenda, and she's alive." Archie felt the world spin around him. Alive? But she was abandoned. The mother abandoned her during an episode caused by drug use. But apparently she's been clean for months and looking for the girl throughout the region. Where is she? Working at a rehab clinic in Oak Ridge. And there's more. Teddy paused, clearly uncomfortable. She should be here in the next few days. Some people in the town have already told her that Willow was with us. Archie sat down heavily, processing the information. For 3 weeks, he had allowed his heart to open to that child. He had begun to dream of a future where she would grow up in his house, where he could be the father she deserved to have. "She'll want to take Willow away," he murmured. "Probably yes. She's the biological mother. What if she's not really cured? What if she goes back to using drugs? What if she abandons Willow again?" Teddy approached his brother. "These are the questions I've been asking myself. But legally, she has all the rights to the child." At that moment, they heard small steps approaching the study door. Willow had run away from Beverly and was looking for Archie. She knocked on the door gently, the way she had learned to do when she wanted attention. Archie opened the door and found her with a new drawing in her hands. This time, she had drawn herself next to a tall man, clearly representing him, and they were both planting flowers together. At the top of the paper, she had written in shaky letters, "Daddy Archie." "She sees you as a father," said Teddy, seeing the drawing. "Archie, this is going to break her heart." Archie picked up Willow in his arms, feeling the weight of the situation settle on his shoulders. The girl snuggled against him, trusting and safe, unaware that her little life was about to be turned upside down once again. "What do we do?" he asked his brother. "I don't know. But when she arrives, we're going to have to make a decision that will change all of our lives." As Archie hugged Willow, watching through the window the first flowers she had planted begin to sprout, he wondered if he would have the strength to let her go, and if it would be fair to deprive a repentant mother of the chance to win back her daughter, even knowing that it would destroy not only his own heart, but also that of a girl who had finally begun to trust the world again. The storm was approaching, and none of them were prepared for what was to come. 2 days after Teddy's revelation, life at the mansion seemed suspended in time. Archie could barely work, spending hours watching Willow play in the garden, memorizing every smile, every gesture, as if they were the last. The girl sensed the tension in the air, reverting to behaving more cautiously, sticking closer to him during meals. Beverly was also shaken. During those weeks, she had rediscovered the pleasure of taking care of a child, of seeing the garden reborn, along with Willow's smiles. The housekeeper knew that the arrival of the biological mother would change everything, and the anticipated pain of separation brought back painful memories of the loss of her own daughter. "Mr. Lancaster," she said that morning while preparing coffee, What if her mother isn't a good person? What if she only wants money? We can't judge someone we don't know, Beverly, replied Archie, but his voice betrayed his own insecurity. It was then that they heard the front gate buzzer. Teddy, who had slept at the mansion to support his brother, answered the intercom. Hello, who's calling? My name is Brenda Oliveira. I've come to pick up my daughter. I heard she's with you. The silence that followed was deafening. Archie felt his legs weaken, while Willow, who was playing in the living room, raised her head as if she had recognized something in the voice coming from the intercom. Come on up, said Teddy, releasing the gate. Brenda walked up the steep driveway to the mansion, with her heart pounding erratically. She had imagined this moment hundreds of times in recent months, but now that it was happening, she felt lost and inadequate. Her clothes were simple but clean. Her face was thinner than it should be, but her eyes shone with a determination she hadn't felt in years. When the door opened, she was faced with two elegant and well-dressed men, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. But it was the third figure that made her crumble. Willow was standing behind Archie, clinging to his leg, watching her with an expression of total confusion. "Willow!" whispered Brenda, tears streaming down her face. "My sweet girl, is it you?" The girl didn't move. For 2 years, she had carried the memory of her mother as a painful ghost, but the woman in front of her seemed different, thinner, with shorter hair, without the smell of alcohol and cigarettes that she associated with the last memories she had of her. "She's not recognizing you," observed Teddy, trying to soften the moment. "Of course not." Brenda wiped away her tears. "She was 2 years old when I made the biggest mistake of my life." Archie felt Willow's little hand squeeze his leg tighter. The girl was scared, but there was something else in her eyes, a mixture of curiosity and pain that broke his heart. "Please sit down," he said, gesturing to the living room. "Let's talk." Brenda entered hesitantly, her eyes not leaving Willow for a second. "She's grown so much," she murmured. "She's so beautiful, so well cared for." "We've tried to do our best," said Archie, unable to hide the pride in his voice. Can I get close to her?" Willow watched the woman approach slowly, and something strange happened. She let go of Archie's leg and took a few steps towards Brenda, as if some primitive instinct were guiding her. "Willow," said Brenda softly, crouching down to get to the girl's level. "Do you remember the song Mommy used to sing you to sleep?" And then something magical and devastating happened at the same time. Brenda began to hum a soft melody, a lullaby that Willow had consciously forgotten, but that was etched in the depths of her soul. The girl's eyes widened, and for the first time in months she emitted a sound, a low whimper, as if all the pain of abandonment was being released at once. "Mommy," she whispered. The first clear word she had spoken since arriving at the mansion. Brenda couldn't contain herself. She opened her arms, and Willow ran into them, snuggling against her mother's chest, as if they had never been separated. Archie felt his heart shatter. For weeks he had dreamed of hearing Willow's voice, but he never imagined that the first word would be "Mommy," directed at someone else. "I missed you so much," cried Brenda, kissing her daughter's hair. So much. Mommy did a very bad thing, but never stopped loving you." Beverly, who was watching everything from the kitchen door, needed to lean on the jam. The scene was beautiful and terrible at the same time, a mother reuniting with her daughter, but also a family falling apart. "Where were you, Mommy?" asked Willow with her small, hoarse voice. "Why did you leave me?" "Mommy was very sick, my love. Sick in the head. But now I'm better, and I've come to get you." It was then that Archie intervened, his voice controlled but firm. "Willow isn't going anywhere today." Brenda raised her face, still holding her daughter. "I know you've taken good care of her, and I'm grateful for that. But she's my daughter. And we love her as if she were our own," replied Archie. The tension in the room became palpable. Willow, sensing the change in the atmosphere, looked confused between Archie and Brenda, not understanding why the two adults she loved most in the world seemed to be in conflict. "Daddy Archie," she said, extending a small hand towards him. "Why are you sad?" The word "daddy" hit Brenda like a slap. She understood at that moment that her daughter had created deep bonds with those men, that they had occupied the space she had left empty. "Mr. Lancaster," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, "I understand that you've become attached to her, but I'm the mother. I've spent 6 months getting treatment. I got a job. I have a place for us to live. I can't just leave her here." "And you can't just take her away," replied Teddy, speaking for the first time. "She's been through trauma. She's recovering. A sudden change could harm her." "Trauma that I caused," admitted Brenda, the guilt weighing on her voice. "And that I need to help heal." Willow began to fidget, realizing that the adults were arguing because of her. She started to cry, a desperate cry that brought back memories of the last arguments she had heard between adults before being abandoned. "Please don't fight," she begged. "I promise I'll be good." All the adults stopped immediately. Archie knelt beside Brenda, taking Willow's free hand. "Sweetie, no one is fighting with you. You're the best girl in the world. Then why does everyone get angry when they talk about me?" The innocent question silenced everyone. Brenda looked at Archie and saw in his face the same love that she felt for her daughter. For the first time, she understood that this wasn't a simple dispute over the custody of a child. It was a situation where everyone loved Willow truly and wanted the best for her. "What if," said Brenda hesitantly, "if I stayed in town for a few days, so that Willow gets used to me again, and so that we can find the best solution for everyone?" Archie looked at the woman who had abandoned her daughter, but who now seemed genuinely repentant and determined to win her back. He looked at Willow, who was confused but clearly happy to have found her mother, and he made a decision that would change the course of their lives. "You can stay in the guest room," he said, "for now." Teddy looked at his brother in surprise, but understood that Archie was doing the most difficult and generous thing of his life, sharing the person he loved most with the one who had the most right over her. That night, Willow slept for the first time since arriving at the mansion without nightmares. She had asked to sleep between Brenda and Beverly, holding the hands of the two women, as if she feared that one of them would disappear again. But in the men's rooms, no one could sleep, all knowing that the coming days would bring decisions that would forever mark the life of a girl who had touched the hearts of all who crossed her path. The first week of Brenda at the mansion was like walking on broken glass. Everyone tried to maintain an appearance of normalcy, but the tension was palpable in every meal, in every conversation, in every moment of silence. Willow was confused. During the day, she played happily with Brenda, listening to stories from when she was a baby, singing the songs her mother had taught her. But at night, she continued to look for Archie to read her storybooks, and her mornings always started by running into Beverly's arms in the kitchen. "Mommy," she asked one afternoon, while Brenda helped her water the flowers in the garden, "why does Daddy Archie get sad when he sees me with you?" Brenda felt her heart clench. "He doesn't get sad, my love. It's just that sometimes adults get worried about things that children don't need to worry about. But will he still be my daddy even when I leave with you?" The question hit Brenda like a dagger. She had automatically assumed that Willow would go with her, but hadn't considered how much the girl had become attached to those people. "Do you want to leave with me?" she asked carefully. Willow stopped watering the plants and looked at her mother with her big, sincere eyes. "I want to stay with you, with Daddy Archie, with Grandma Beverly, and with Uncle Teddy. Why can't we all stay together?" That night, while Willow slept, Brenda met with Archie on the back porch. He was watching the stars, lost in thought. "Can I sit down?" she asked hesitantly. Archie nodded affirmatively, but didn't take his eyes off the sky. "She asked a question today that left me without an answer," said Brenda after a few minutes of silence. "About staying here. About why we can't all stay together. As if it were the simplest thing in the world." Archie finally looked at her. "For a child, it's simple. She loves us all and doesn't understand why she needs to choose." "And maybe she doesn't need to," said Brenda, surprising him. "Maybe I'm the one who needs to rethink everything." "What do you mean?" Brenda sighed deeply. I spent 2 years dreaming of the moment when I would get my daughter back. But now that I'm here, I see that she has found something that I never managed to give her. Stability, security, a complete family. You're her mother, said Archie. That counts more than anything. Being a mother is more than giving birth. It's taking care, protecting, being present. You did that for her when I couldn't. During the following days, something unexpected began to happen. Brenda, instead of trying to take Willow away immediately, began to integrate into the routine of the house. She helped Beverly in the kitchen, talked to Teddy about his plans to rebuild his life, and even accompanied Archie to the office sometimes, taking Willow to play in the factory garden. She's different from what I expected, commented Teddy with his brother during a work lunch. More responsible. Suffering changes people, replied Archie. Sometimes for the better. But not everything was harmony. Brenda still struggled against old impulses, especially when she felt overwhelmed or questioned. During a discussion about Willow's education, she exploded. Do you think you know everything about her because you've taken care of her for a few weeks? I carried her for 9 months. I know what's best for my daughter. The argument happened in Willow's presence, who immediately hid under the kitchen table, trembling. The girl's behavior brought Brenda back to reality instantly. I'm sorry, my love, she said, crouching down to reach Willow. Mommy shouldn't have yelled. But Willow refused to come out from under the table, and it was only when Archie joined her on the floor, speaking softly, that she finally came out. I messed everything up again, cried Brenda to Beverly later. I promised myself that I would never lose control in front of her again. Raising a child is difficult, said Beverly gently, especially one who has already been through trauma. You're learning, like all of us. It was Beverly who suggested something that would change the dynamics of the situation. What if Brenda worked here at the mansion, as a gardener or helper? That way she could be close to Willow, but the girl would maintain the stability she's already achieved. The idea was presented in a family meeting with everyone present, including Willow. What do you think, sweetie? Asked Archie. Would you like your mother to live here with us and take care of the garden you planted together? Willow's eyes lit up. Really? She can stay forever? If she wants to, said Archie, looking at Brenda. And if you accept me, replied Brenda. I know I've made terrible mistakes. I know I don't deserve this second chance, but I swear I'll do everything to be a better mother. Teddy, who had remained silent throughout the conversation, finally spoke. We all deserve a second chance. I myself have made mistakes that cost our family dearly. If you're willing to try, I support it. That night, Brenda moved permanently to the maid's room of the mansion, a small but comfortable space that she arranged with care. Willow helped decorate, making drawings to paste on the walls. Mommy, she said while they were pasting a drawing of the whole family together, now you're never going away again? Never again, my love. Mommy has learned that her place is by your side, but not everyone in the town saw the situation favorably. Nasty comments began to circulate, that the Lancasters were buying a family, that Brenda was taking advantage of the situation, that it wasn't natural for an ex-addict to live in a mansion. It was Mrs. Hilda, the official gossip of the town, who brought the comments directly to Brenda one afternoon at the market. Girl, everyone is saying you got lucky, huh? Falling into a situation like that after abandoning your daughter. Some say you planned everything. Brenda felt her blood boil, but took a deep breath before answering. Mrs. Hilda, I haven't planned anything in 2 years. I'm just trying to regain my daughter's love and be a better person. I see. And when those men get tired of playing family, what are you going to do? The question echoed in Brenda's mind all the way back home. What if Mrs. Hilda was right? What if it was just a temporary fantasy? Her doubts intensified when she overheard unintentionally a conversation between the brothers in the study. Archie, are you sure this is going to work? An ex-addict living in our house, taking care of the garden. People are talking. Let them talk, replied Archie. Willow is happy, But what if she goes back to using drugs? What if she decides to take Willow away all of a sudden? You're putting yourself in a very vulnerable position. Brenda walked away from the door with a heavy heart. Teddy's doubts were justifiable, but they hurt deeply. She knew she needed to prove her worth every day, that even one mistake could destroy everything. That night, while watching Willow sleep peacefully, Brenda made a silent promise. She would make any sacrifice necessary to keep that family united, even if it meant giving up her own dreams and desires. But what she didn't know was that the biggest challenges were yet to come, and that her determination would be tested in ways she had never imagined. 2 weeks after Brenda settled permanently into the mansion, the first major crisis arrived unexpectedly. Willow had woken up on a Saturday morning with a high fever and refused to eat anything. Brenda went into complete panic mode. "She's burning up with fever," she told Archie, carrying Willow in her arms. "She needs to go to the hospital now." "Calm down, Brenda," Archie tried to soothe her. "Let's call Dr. Peterson first." But Brenda was inconsolable. The memories of all the times Willow had been sick on the streets, when she had no money for doctors or medicine, left her desperate. She began pacing back and forth, holding the girl and muttering, "Not again, not again. I can't lose her again." "Mommy, you're hurting me," groaned Willow, who was being squeezed too tightly. It was Beverly who managed to take the girl out of Brenda's arms. "Honey, you need to calm down. The fever isn't that high." Dr. Peterson arrived in half an hour and diagnosed a simple flu. He prescribed medication and rest, nothing serious. But Brenda couldn't calm down all day. What if it gets worse during the night? What if it's something more serious and he didn't see it? Archie watched Brenda's behavior with growing concern. He recognized the signs of uncontrolled panic, excessive agitation, the inability to think clearly. At night, when everyone was already asleep, Brenda remained awake, checking Willow's temperature every 15 minutes. It was during one of those checks that Teddy found her in the kitchen, nervously rummaging through drawers and cabinets. "What are you looking for?" he asked. "Something for the pain, for the fever." "I know there was something here." Teddy immediately realized what was happening. Brenda was looking for medication, anything that could calm her down. It was the typical behavior of someone struggling against a relapse. "Brenda, stop," he said firmly. "Take a deep breath." "You don't understand," she exploded. "She could die. On the street I saw children die from simple things because they didn't have medical care. What if she's well cared for now. It's not the same situation anymore." But Brenda wasn't listening. She continued searching desperately until she found a bottle of tranquilizers that Archie occasionally took to sleep. Her hands trembled when she held the bottle. "Brenda, no," said Teddy, reaching out. "Give me that. Just a little bit. Just to calm me down. To be able to take care of her properly. You know that's not how it works." It was then that Archie appeared in the kitchen, attracted by the noises. When he saw the scene, Brenda with the bottle of medication trembling in her hands, Teddy trying to convince her not to take them, he immediately understood the gravity of the situation. "Brenda," he said softly, "give me the medicine." "I need to be okay to take care of her," cried Brenda. "I need to stop shaking, stop being afraid." "And you will stop, but not like this." Archie approached slowly, as he would with an injured animal. "Remember what you told me? About how you started using drugs? It was also out of fear, wasn't it?" Brenda nodded through tears. "And where did that lead you?" "I lost everything. I lost her." "Then don't lose her again. Give me the bottle." With her hands trembling violently, Brenda handed the tranquilizers to Archie. Then she collapsed in a chair, sobbing. "I thought I was strong. I thought I had overcome this." "Relapses are part of recovery," said Teddy, surprising the two with his understanding. "The important thing is not to give up." Beverly, who had woken up with the noises, appeared in the kitchen, still in her robe. When she saw Brenda crying, she immediately understood what had happened. "Come," she said, helping Brenda to her feet. "Let's make some tea and talk." During the next hour, the two women talked in the kitchen while the men took care of Willow. Beverly shared her own experience with moments of despair after the loss of her daughter and how she had learned to deal with anxiety. "The fear never goes away completely," said Beverly, "but you learn not to let it control you. What if I can't? What if one day I'm not strong enough? Then we'll be here to support you. That's what a family is for." The next morning, Willow woke up without a fever and asking for breakfast. Brenda, who had spent the night awake, watched her daughter eat with eyes swollen from crying, but with a deep gratitude. "Mummy, why are you sad?" asked Willow, noticing her mother's expression. "I'm not sad, my love. I'm happy because you're better." But Archie and Teddy knew that that crisis had revealed something important. Brenda was still fragile, still fighting against internal demons that could threaten the stability that everyone had built. "We need a plan," said Teddy to his brother, while Brenda helped Willow get dressed. "If this happens again—" "It won't happen again," interrupted Archie. "We're going to make sure of that." That afternoon, Archie had a frank conversation with Brenda in the garden while Willow slept. "Brenda, I need to know, are you going to be able to stay strong for her?" "I'm going to try, but I'm scared, Archie. I'm scared I won't be good enough, of failing her again." "Every parent has that fear," he admitted. "I'm also scared every day. Scared of not knowing how to take care of her properly. Scared of making the wrong decisions." "But you never abandoned a daughter." "I didn't abandon because I never had one, but I abandoned my wife emotionally in the last months before the accident. I abandoned my brother for years because of a stupid pride. We've all failed people we love." Brenda looked at the flowers that she and Willow had planted together. They were growing, despite some setbacks along the way. "What do you think I should do?" "Accept help when you need it, and trust that you're not alone in this." That night, a new routine was established. Brenda participated in a call with the rehab clinic, where she had been treated, talking to a psychologist about strategies for dealing with moments of crisis. Archie and Teddy committed to being more attentive to the signs that she might be struggling. "We're going to be a real family," said Willow during dinner, unaware of the gravity of the day's events. Everyone taking care of each other. But while everyone smiled at the girl's comment, each adult at the table carried the weight of knowing that keeping that family together would be a constant battle, and that the next test of their strength could be even more difficult. Beverly, observing the tense expressions around the table, made a silent prayer. She had lost a daughter and knew how pain could destroy a person. Now she was determined not to let that new family she had found fall apart too. But deep in her heart, everyone knew that the first crisis had only revealed the fragility of their situation, and that other storms were forming on the horizon, ready to test whether love would be enough to keep everyone together. A month after Brenda's crisis, the family had found a new equilibrium. Willow was attending a small local school, where she quickly became loved by the teachers due to her kindness and the colourful drawings she always took to show. Brenda worked in the garden every morning and helped Beverly with the housework, proving day after day her commitment to her new life. But the external pressure was growing in a dangerous way. It all started when Father Theodore from the local church appeared at the mansion on a Tuesday afternoon without warning. The 60-year-old man, respected in the community, had a grave expression on his face when Beverly received him at the door. "I need to speak with the Lancaster gentleman," he said. "It's about the girl's situation." Archie received the priest in his study with Teddy present. Willow was at school and Brenda in the garden, unaware of the visit. "Mr. Lancaster," began Father Theodore, "I come here moved by the concern of several parishioners. There are rumors, questions about the propriety of this situation." "What kind of questions?" asked Archie, already feeling his irritation grow. "An ex-addict, living in the house of 2 single men taking care of a child. You must understand that this generates speculation." Teddy leaned forward. "Father, with all due respect, what kind of speculation? Some say that you are taking advantage of the woman's vulnerability. Others suggest that she is taking advantage of your generosity. And there are those who question whether this environment is suitable for a young child." "And what do you think?" asked Archie, controlling his tone. "I think you have good intentions," replied the priest. But appearances matter in a small town, and the well-being of the child must always come first. It was at that moment that Willow arrived from school, running down the hallway and shouting excitedly, "Daddy Archie! Uncle Teddy! Look what I did!" She burst into the study without knocking, holding a colourful drawing, but stopped abruptly when she saw the stranger. "Hi, mister," she said politely, as Beverly had taught her. "Hello, dear," replied Father Theodore, watching the girl carefully. "Can you show me your drawing?" Willow looked at Archie, who nodded. She proudly showed her work, a large house surrounded by flowers with 4 figures holding hands. Her, Brenda, Archie, and Beverly. Teddy appeared on the side, also smiling. "Very pretty," said the priest. "This is your family." "It is," replied Willow animatedly. "Mommy takes care of the flowers. Daddy Archie works a lot. Grandma Beverly makes delicious food, and Uncle Teddy tells me stories. And are you happy here?" "Very happy. Before I lived on the street and was hungry. Now I have a warm bed and everyone loves me." Father Theodore was silent for a moment, clearly touched by the simplicity and sincerity of the child. "Well," he said finally, rising, "I see that the girl is well cared for, but I ask you to reflect on what we discussed. Sometimes even the best intentions can generate unexpected consequences." After the priest left, Archie was furious. "Who do they think they are to judge our family?" "A small town, brother," sighed Teddy. "People talk. Let them talk what? We're taking care of a child who needed help. I know that, you know that, but not everyone sees it that way." That night, during dinner, the tension was palpable. Brenda sensed that something was wrong, but didn't know what. It was Willow who broke the silence. "Daddy Archie, why are you sad? Was it because of the churchman?" Archie looked at the girl, surprised. "Did you hear our conversation?" "A little bit. He said that people are saying bad things about our family." Brenda dropped her fork, her heart racing. "What kind of things?" Archie hesitated, but decided to be honest. "Some people in the town think that our situation is unusual." "Unusual how?" insisted Brenda. "They think you're taking advantage of us, or that we're taking advantage of you. They question whether this is appropriate for Willow." Brenda paled. "I knew this was going to happen. I knew it was too good to last." "Don't say that," interjected Beverly. "What matters at this table is us. What others think doesn't matter." "It does matter," replied Brenda bitterly, "especially if they decide that Willow shouldn't be here." "Mommy," said Willow, climbing on the chair to stand taller, "are you going to leave again?" The question silenced everyone. The fear in the girl's eyes was palpable, the fear of once again losing the people she loved. "No, my love," said Brenda, but her voice trembled. "Mommy isn't going anywhere." But in the following week, the pressure increased. Mrs. Hilda spread throughout the town that she had seen Brenda acting strangely at the market. Willow's teacher asked subtle questions about life at home. And worst of all, someone made an anonymous complaint to Child Protective Services. The social worker, Michelle Davis, appeared at the mansion on a Friday morning to do a routine check. "It's standard procedure when we receive reports," she explained to Archie while observing the meticulously clean and organized house. Willow was at school, but Brenda was present, visibly nervous. "What kind of reports?" asked Archie. "Questions about the suitability of the home environment for a child in a vulnerable situation." Michelle interviewed each adult separately. She asked about Willow's routines, about the relationship between everyone, about plans for the future. "Mrs. Oliveira," she said during the private interview, "are you sure that this situation is sustainable? Wouldn't it be better for your daughter to have a more traditional home?" "More traditional like what?" asked Brenda, feeling the world collapse again. "A married mother and father, a recognized family structure. What if I can't offer that now? What if this is the best option for her? There are other alternatives, foster families, for example." Brenda felt her legs weaken. The possibility of losing Willow again, this time definitively, terrified her. When Michelle finished the interviews, she gathered everyone in the living room. "For now, I see no reason for immediate changes," she said. "The child seems well cared for and happy. but I'm going to keep monitoring the situation." After she left, a heavy silence settled in the house. "She's going to come back," said Brenda, visibly shaken. "And next time she may not like what she finds." "Brenda, stop thinking the worst." Archie tried to calm her. "The worst has already happened to me once. I know how to recognize the signs." That night, Willow went to sleep unaware of the social worker's visit, but realizing that all the adults were worried. She made a drawing before sleeping, all the figures of the family holding hands inside a circle, with high walls around, as if they were protecting themselves from something outside. "Grandma Beverly," she asked while being put to bed, "is our family going to stay together forever?" Beverly looked at that girl who had brought so much joy to their lives and felt her heart clench. "We're going to fight for that, my dear," she replied. "We're going to fight with all our forces." But while Willow slept peacefully, the 4 adults who loved her knew that the battle was just beginning. The external pressure was intensifying, and they would need to find a way to protect not only Willow, but the entire unconventional family they had built. The question that haunted everyone was, would love be enough to face a society that did not understand or accept their situation? And more importantly, how far would they be willing to go to keep Willow safe and happy? 2 weeks after the social worker's visit, the tension at the mansion had become almost unbearable. Brenda could barely sleep, waking up several times during the night to check if Willow was still in her room. Archie had become more protective, avoiding taking the girl to the factory or for outings in town. Even Beverly was quieter, worried about the future of the family she had learned to love. It was on a Monday morning that everything changed again. Teddy arrived at the mansion earlier than normal, with a strange expression on his face, a mixture of hope and apprehension. "Archie, we need to talk. Urgent," he said, finding his brother having coffee with Willow. "Uncle Teddy!" exclaimed the girl, running to hug him. "Look what I drew for you." It was a drawing of a tall man with glasses, clearly representing Teddy, surrounded by colorful stars. "It's beautiful, sweetie," he said, but his smile seemed forced. "How about you go play in the garden with your mom while I talk to Daddy Archie?" When they were alone, Teddy pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. "I got a call last night. From New York." "New York?" "Gillian Monroe. Remember her? She was our company's lawyer about 10 years ago. Then she moved and became a district attorney." Archie frowned. "I vaguely remember. What does she want?" "She heard about our situation through mutual acquaintances, and she has a proposal." "What kind of proposal?" Teddy took a deep breath. "She and her husband, Walter, have been trying to have children for 15 years. They've done all the possible treatments, tried adoption several times, but something always went wrong. They are a well-established couple, have a large house, excellent financial conditions." "Where are you going with this, Teddy?" "They want to adopt Willow." The silence that followed was deafening. Archie felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. "You're kidding." "I'm not. Gillian said she can resolve the entire legal situation quickly. Willow would have official parents, a mother who isn't an ex-addict, an environment that no one would question, and would lose her biological mother and all of us," completed Archie, his voice filled with anger. "Archie, think rationally. The pressures here are only going to increase. The social worker will come back, people will continue talking. What if one day they manage to take Willow away from us anyway? At least this way, she would go to a family that we know will take good care of her." "Have you told this to Brenda?" "Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first." Archie got up abruptly, walking to the window. Outside, he saw Willow and Brenda watering the flowers together, laughing at something the girl had said. "She's not an object to be transferred from one family to another when it becomes inconvenient," he said. "No one is saying that, but we have to think about what's best for her in the long run. And you think being torn from everyone she loves is the best for her?" "I think having a normal life without all this controversy may be better, yes." It was at that moment that Brenda entered the kitchen with Willow, both dirty with dirt and happy. "Daddy Archie, come see. The roses I planted are sprouting," said Willow animatedly. "In a minute, sweetie." replied Archie, trying to keep his voice normal. But Brenda immediately noticed the tension between the two brothers. "Has something happened?" she asked. Teddy and Archie exchanged glances. Willow was present. They couldn't speak openly. "Willow, how about you go take a bath and change clothes?" suggested Brenda. "Then you show the flowers to Daddy Archie." When the girl left, Brenda turned to the two men. "What's going on?" Archie looked at Teddy, who sighed and began to explain. As he spoke about Gillian and Walter, about the adoption proposal, Brenda's face grew paler. "You want to give my daughter to strangers," she said when he finished, her voice almost a whisper. "They're not strangers," tried to explain Teddy. "They're good people who can give her—" "What? What can they give that I can't?" Brenda's voice began to rise. "Stability, respectability, a life without constant questioning. Love. Can they give the love that I give? Can they give the connection that she has with us?" Beverly, who had heard part of the conversation from the hallway, entered the kitchen. "Can someone explain to me what's going on here?" When she heard about the proposal, Beverly was outraged. "Have you gone crazy? That girl has finally found a family that loves her, and you want to hand her over to strangers." "They're not strangers," insisted Teddy, "and it may be the best solution for everyone." "For everyone except Willow," exploded Brenda. "Do you know what it's like to be abandoned? Do you know what it's like to grow up thinking you're not good enough to be loved?" "Brenda, no one is talking about abandonment." "That's exactly what it's about. When the situation gets difficult, you want to get rid of her." The argument was getting more heated, the voices rising, until a small and frightened voice interrupted them. "Why are you fighting?" Willow was at the kitchen door, in clean pajamas, with her big eyes wide with fear. She had heard raised voices and had come to investigate. Everyone fell silent immediately. "Are you fighting because of me again?" she asked, her voice trembling. "No, my love," said Brenda, kneeling down to get to her daughter's level. "Adults sometimes disagree about things, but it's not your fault. But I heard you talking about giving me to other people." The silence was devastating. Willow had understood more than they thought. "You don't want me anymore?" she asked, tears starting to run down her little face. "Of course we want you," said Archie immediately, kneeling down too. "Never think that, sweetie? Then why do you want to give me to other people?" No one knew how to answer, how to explain to a 4-year-old the complexities of the situation, the social pressures, the adults' fears. "I don't want to go to another place," said Willow, sobbing. "I want to stay here with you. I promise I'll be good, that I won't be trouble." "You're already good, my love," said Brenda, hugging her. "You're perfect. Then why can't I stay?" Teddy, seeing the girl's despair, felt the weight of his suggestion. Maybe he was being too practical, forgetting that they were dealing with a real child, with real feelings. "Sweetie," he said softly, "no one is going to give you to anyone. We were just talking about possibilities. But you're part of this family." That night, after Willow finally fell asleep in Brenda's arms, the 4 adults gathered in the living room for a definitive conversation. "I'm not going to accept that proposal," said Archie categorically. "I'm not even going to consider it. Even knowing that the pressures will continue, even knowing that it may be worse for her in the future, even so, a family doesn't give up at the first obstacle. What if it's not just an obstacle? What if it's a battle that we can't win? Then we're going to lose fighting," said Brenda, surprising everyone with her determination. "But we're not going to hand over our daughter without a fight." Beverly nodded vigorously. "This girl has been through too much abandonment in her life. We're not going to be another group of adults who give up on her when it gets difficult." Teddy looked at the 3, seeing the determination on their faces. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe love really was stronger than social conventions. "Okay," he said finally, "we're going to fight, but we need a better strategy than just waiting and hoping." "What kind of strategy?" "First, let's make everything official. Archie and Brenda can get married legally, making the situation legally indisputable." The silence that followed was charged with possibilities and complications. "A marriage of convenience?" asked Brenda. "A marriage to protect Willow," corrected Archie. "And to become a family in the eyes of the law." It was a radical solution that would change everything once again. But as they watched the door of the room where Willow slept, everyone knew that they would do anything to keep her safe and happy. The question was, would this be the answer to all the problems, or just the beginning of a new series of complications? The proposal of marriage between Archie and Brenda hung over the house like a heavy cloud during the next 3 days. Neither of them touched on the subject directly, but both seemed lost in deep thought, observing each other discreetly during meals and while caring for Willow. Brenda knew that a marriage on paper would solve many legal problems, but the idea terrified her. Not because she didn't like Archie. On the contrary, she had developed a genuine and deep affection for him, but because she was afraid that he would feel obligated to do something that would change his life forever, just because of her and Willow. Archie, in turn, struggled with confused feelings. Since Beatrice's death, he had convinced himself that he would never marry again. But the idea of forming an official family with Brenda and Willow awakened in him hopes that he thought he had buried forever. It was Willow who forced the conversation, without knowing what she was doing. "Mommy," she said one afternoon while they were playing in the garden, "why do you and Daddy Archie sleep in separate rooms if you like each other?" Brenda almost dropped the watering can she was holding. "Why do you think we like each other, my love? Because you keep looking at each other when you think no one is watching, and because Daddy Archie gets happy when you smile, and you get happy when he comes home from work." The simplicity of the childish observation left Brenda speechless. It was true that she had developed feelings for Archie that went far beyond gratitude, but she had never admitted this even to herself. Sometimes adults are special friends, sweetie. That doesn't mean they need to sleep in the same room. But I saw on Grandma Beverly's TV that people who love each other get married and become a real family. We're already a real family, but not on paper. The teacher said that real families have papers that say they're family. That night, Brenda sought out Archie in his study. He was reading, but she could tell that he wasn't really paying attention to the words. "Can I come in?" "Of course," he said, closing the book. "We need to talk about Teddy's suggestion." Archie straightened up in his chair. "About the marriage." "Yes. Archie, I don't want you to feel pressure to do something you don't want. You've already done so much for me and Willow." "Brenda," he interrupted her gently, "can I tell you something? In the last few months since you arrived, I feel more alive than I have felt in 3 years. I wake up in the morning anxious to see Willow's smile, to hear you singing in the garden. For the first time since I lost Beatrice, I have a reason to come home at the end of the day. Archie, let me finish. I'm not talking about romantic love. I still don't know if I'm capable of that again, but I'm talking about family, about commitment, about wanting to protect the people who have become more important to me than anything in this world." Brenda felt her eyes fill with tears. "And you think that would be fair to me? A marriage without love? It would be a marriage with love." He got up and approached her. "Maybe not the kind of love from the movies, but a real love. Love of family, of partnership, of mutual care. What if one day you regret it? What if you meet someone you really fall in love with? What if you regret it?" He returned the question. "What if one day you want to find a man who loves you the way you deserve to be loved?" Both fell silent, processing the implications of their own questions. "We have to be honest with each other," said Brenda finally, "about what each one expects, about our limits, about how this would work." "I agree, then let's talk. About everything." They spent the entire night talking. About expectations, about fears, about how to create healthy boundaries in a marriage that would start more as a partnership than as a romance. About how to explain it to Willow, about how to deal with external pressures, about how to protect the feelings of everyone involved. "There's one thing I need to know," said Brenda when it was almost dawn. "Would you be able to see me as a real wife? Not just on paper, but share a life, make decisions together, be a team?" "We're already a team," replied Archie. "We've already made decisions together about Willow. We've already shared responsibilities. The only difference would be to make it official. And the question of intimacy." Both blushed, but knew they needed to discuss this too. We can let that happen naturally if it happens, he said, without pressure from either side. If our feelings evolve into something deeper, great. If not, we'll still be a family. The next day, they gathered Teddy and Beverly to communicate their decision. We're going to get married, said Archie directly, but we want it to be clear that this isn't a show for others. It's a real commitment to forming a family. Beverly began to cry with happiness. Beatrice would be so happy, she said. She always said you needed someone to take care of and someone to take care of you. Teddy was relieved, but also worried. Are you sure? Marriage, even if it's of convenience, is a serious thing. That's exactly why we're going to do it, replied Brenda. Because it's serious. Because Willow deserves parents who are committed to her and to each other. Willow's reaction was pure joy. You're going to get married? She shouted when they told her. Am I going to have a real mommy and daddy on paper? You always had a real mommy and daddy, said Archie, picking her up in his arms. Now we're just going to make it official. Can I be the flower girl? Of course you can, replied Brenda, hugging them both. But not everything would be simple. When the news of the wedding spread through the town, the reactions were extreme. Some praised Archie for doing the right thing and giving respectability to the situation. Others were more cynical, suggesting that it was just a ploy to keep Willow and avoid legal problems. At least now they're married, commented Mrs. Hilda at the bakery, although I still think it's strange for a rich man to marry an ex-addict. Love doesn't choose social class, retorted Mrs. Gable, defending the family she had learned to respect. The social worker, Michelle Davis, made a new visit a week before the wedding. I heard you're getting married, she said during the interview. It's true, confirmed Archie. We want to formalize our family. And you, Brenda? Are you sure you're not being pressured? I'm absolutely sure, replied Brenda firmly. This is the best decision for my daughter and for me. And the child? How has she reacted? Willow is radiant, said Archie. She's finally going to have what she always wanted, a complete and official family. Michelle made her notes but seemed more at ease. Well, a home with married parents certainly resolves many of the concerns that had been raised. 3 days before the wedding, Brenda had a panic attack. What if it doesn't work out, she said to Beverly, while trying on the simple dress they had bought. What if I don't know how to be a wife? What if he regrets it? Honey, said Beverly patiently, you've already been a wife for months, taking care of the house, supporting him in decisions about Willow, being his companion. The paper is just going to formalize what already exists. But what if nothing? Interrupted Beverly. You two love each other in your own way. You may not be passionate like in the movies, but you have something more solid. Respect, affection, commitment. It's a better foundation for a marriage than many passions I've seen. On the eve of the wedding, Archie found Willow in the garden, drawing once again. What are you doing, sweetie? Drawing our new family, she said, showing the paper. Look, now you have a line connecting you, as if you were one thing. He observed the drawing. 2 adult figures linked by a golden line, with a child between them, all surrounded by colorful flowers. And are you happy with our new family? Very happy, she replied, hugging him. Now I know that no one else will be able to take me away from you, right? Never again, sweetie, he promised. Never again. That night, as everyone prepared for the big day, each carried their own fears and hopes, but all had one certainty in common. They would do anything to protect the family they had built, even if it meant reinventing the concept of love and marriage. The next day would bring changes that none of them could foresee, but they would face them together, as a real family. The wedding day dawned sunny, but with heavy clouds forming on the horizon, a harbinger of what was to come. Willow woke up before everyone else, running through the hallways of the mansion with her flower girl dress in her hands, shouting with joy. Today's the day, she sang, waking up the whole house. Beverly had gotten up even earlier to prepare a special breakfast. The table was beautiful, decorated with the flowers from the garden that Brenda and Willow had cultivated together. Mummy, are you nervous? Asked Willow, watching Brenda stir her coffee without really drinking it. A little bit, my love. It's normal to be nervous on important days. But are you happy? "Very happy," replied Brenda, and for the first time in weeks that was completely true. The ceremony would be simple, at the town hall, with only the family present. Archie had chosen his best suit, Brenda wore a light blue dress that enhanced her eyes, and Willow was radiant in her little pink dress with embroidered flowers. Teddy would be the best man, Beverly the maid of honor, and Willow would carry the rings on a pillow that she herself had helped decorate. When they arrived at the town hall, a small crowd had formed in front of the building. Part of the town had come to witness the Lancaster wedding, some out of curiosity, others out of support, and some clearly to judge. "We ignore it and move on," murmured Archie to Brenda when he saw the number of people. The ceremony was moving and simple. When the justice of the peace asked them to exchange rings, Willow handed them over with such solemnity that everyone smiled. When he asked if they accepted each other as husband and wife, both answered yes, looking not only at each other, but also at Willow. "I declare you husband and wife," said the judge. "You may kiss the bride." The kiss was gentle, respectful, but full of promises. Willow clapped and shouted "Hooray!" making everyone laugh, but it was when they left the town hall that the first bombshell arrived. An elegant woman, approximately 50 years old, approached the group. Archie recognized her immediately. It was Gillian Monroe, the lawyer from New York that Teddy had mentioned. "Archie," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "What a coincidence to find you here." "Gillian," he replied, clearly uncomfortable. "What are you doing here?" "I came for the meeting with Child Protective Services," she said calmly. "I didn't know you were getting married today." Brenda felt her blood run cold. "What meeting with Child Protective Services?" Gillian looked at Teddy with an accusatory expression. "Didn't you tell them? I called 3 days ago confirming my visit." Teddy paled. "Gillian, I said that we wouldn't need your services anymore. And I said that I had already started the process," she replied. "Questioning the suitability of a home environment isn't something that gets cancelled with a phone call." "What process?" asked Archie, his voice dangerously low. "An evaluation process for possible removal of the minor and subsequent adoption by an appropriate family." The world seemed to stop. Brenda felt her legs weaken, and Archie had to hold her up. "You filed a lawsuit against us?" asked Brenda, incredulous. "Not against you," said Gillian. "For the child's well-being, before this sudden wedding, of course." Willow, who didn't completely understand what was happening, sensed the tension and clung to Brenda's leg. "Mommy, what's happening?" "Nothing, my love," said Brenda, trying to keep her voice calm. "Let's go home." But Gillian hadn't finished. "In fact, the fact that you got married today, just when you knew I would be here, can be seen as an attempt to manipulate the judicial system. We got married because we love each other and we want to form a family," said Archie, controlling his anger. "A very convenient love," replied Gillian. "Just in time to create a legally more favorable situation." It was then that Teddy exploded. "Gillian, stop it! I made a mistake contacting you, but that doesn't give you the right to destroy my brother's family." "Family?" She laughed bitterly. "A rich man taking advantage of a vulnerable woman and a traumatized child isn't a family, Teddy. It's a recipe for disaster." "You don't know our family," said Beverly, speaking for the first time. "You don't know the love that exists between these people." "I know what I see in the reports," replied Gillian coldly. "An ex-addict, 2 single men, a child removed from the streets. Do you think a last-minute wedding is going to solve that?" Willow started to cry, scared by the raised voices and the palpable tension. "Enough," said Archie, picking up Willow in his arms. "We're not going to discuss this in front of her." "Uncle Teddy," sobbed Willow, extending her little arms to him. "Why is the lady being mean?" Teddy looked at his heart's niece, seeing the fear in her eyes, and felt the weight of his terrible decision. He had contacted Gillian weeks ago, in a moment of panic, believing that he was protecting Willow. Now he saw that he had put the entire family in danger. "Gillian," he said, his voice trembling, "I officially withdraw any support for your process. This family doesn't need your help." "Too late, Teddy. The process is already underway." "Then we're going to fight against it," said Brenda, finding her voice again. With all our strength. Good luck, said Gillian, walking away. The hearing is next week. I hope you have better arguments than love. When she was gone, the group was silent, shocked. The day that should have been of celebration had become a nightmare. Let's go home, said Archie quietly. We need to talk. The way back to the mansion was silent. Willow had stopped crying, but was visibly scared. Brenda held her hand, trying to convey a security she didn't feel. At home, after they put Willow to rest, she was emotionally exhausted. The four adults gathered in the living room. Teddy, said Archie, his voice filled with disappointment, how could you do this to us? I thought I was protecting you. The pressures were increasing. You thought that betraying our trust was protecting us? Teddy lowered his head. I made a terrible mistake, but we can't go back now. We have to deal with the consequences. And what consequences are those? Asked Brenda. Gillian has influence. She has resources. If she really wants to carry this forward, she can take Willow away from us, completed Beverly. Not if we fight, said Archie. We're a legal family now. We have rights. Rights that she will question, said Teddy bitterly. She'll say that the wedding was a farce, that you're not suitable. Then we're going to prove that she's wrong, said Brenda with determination. We're going to show that we are a real family. How? By being a real family, replied Archie. In every aspect. They spent the rest of the day planning strategies, contacting lawyers, preparing documents. But deep down, all knew that the battle would be much more difficult than they imagined. That night, Willow had terrible nightmares. She woke up crying, calling for all of them. You're not going to give me to the mean lady, right? She begged when they all gathered in her room. Never, promised Archie. Never, repeated Brenda. Never, said Beverly. Never, murmured Teddy, carrying the weight of the guilt. But while consoling Willow, all knew that a war had been declared, and that in the coming weeks they would have to fight not only for Willow's custody, but for the very survival of their unconventional family. The wedding that should have solved all the problems had only raised new questions, and the biggest battle of their lives was just beginning. The week leading up to the hearing was the most tense that the family had ever lived. Archie hired the best family lawyer in the region, Dr. Hank Miller, an experienced man who had won similar cases. But even he seemed worried about the strength of Gillian's arguments. She has valid points, admitted Dr. Miller during a preparatory meeting. Brenda's history of addiction, the fact that you got married right before the hearing, the unconventional situation that existed before. But now we are a legal family, protested Archie, and she will argue that it's just a facade. We need to prove that the marriage is genuine, that the environment is stable, that Willow is truly well. During those days, Willow sensed the growing tension. She returned to having constant nightmares and began to behave more withdrawn, like in the first days at the mansion. Daddy Archie, she asked one morning, if I'm very good, will the mean lady let me stay with you? The question broke Archie's heart. Sweetie, this has nothing to do with you being good or bad. You're perfect as you are. Then why does she want to take me away? How to explain to a 4-year-old the legal complexities and social prejudices that threatened her family? Sometimes adult people disagree about what is best for children, said Brenda, sitting next to her daughter. But we're going to show that the best place for you is here with us. What if they don't believe it? The silence that followed was devastating. 2 days before the hearing, Dr. Miller brought worrying news. Gillian managed to get an order for Willow to be interviewed by an independent psychologist, he said. It's standard procedure, but what? Asked Brenda, alarmed. The psychologist chosen, Dr. Eleanor Vance, has a reputation for being conservative. She favors traditional families in her reports. It's a trap, said Teddy, who had become a shadow of himself since they discovered his responsibility in the process. It may be, but we have to work with it. Willow's interview with Dr. Vance happened the next morning. The family couldn't be present, which left everyone desperate. Willow spent 2 hours in the room with the psychologist, making drawings, answering questions, playing with specific toys that were used to assess the emotional state of children. When she came out, she was visibly tired. Was it difficult, sweetie? Asked Brenda, hugging her. The doctor asked many strange questions, replied Willow. About if you fight, if I'm afraid of anything, if I would prefer to live with other people. And what did you answer? The truth, that you don't fight, that I'm not afraid of anything when I'm with you, and that I don't want to live with other people. Very good, my love, said Archie, but deep down he was worried. Experienced psychologists knew how to ask questions in ways that could interpret the answers in multiple ways. On the eve of the hearing, an unexpected visit arrived. Father Theodore appeared at the mansion, but this time his expression was very different from the first visit. I came here to apologize, he said as soon as Archie received him. Apologize for what? For contributing to this situation. My words in the first visit helped to fuel the gossip that reached this Gillian, and now, seeing what could happen to the girl— What do you mean? I want to testify in your favor at the hearing. I've observed this family in recent months. I've seen how Willow has flourished, how you have become truly united. If that's not a family, then I don't know what is. The priest's offer was an unexpected relief. His testimony could carry significant weight with the judge. There are more people willing to testify, continued Father Theodore. Willow's teacher, Mrs. Gable from the bakery, even Dr. Peterson. Everyone has seen the girl's transformation. That night, the family gathered to have dinner together, possibly for the last time. No one could eat properly except Willow, who seemed calmer now that she felt everyone's support. Tomorrow is going to be a difficult day, said Archie, but no matter what happens, we will always be a family. Even if I have to leave? Asked Willow. Even then, love doesn't end just because people are far away from each other. But I don't want to be far away, and we're going to fight so that you won't be. The day of the hearing arrived grey and rainy. The family dressed in their best clothes, Archie and Teddy in suits, Brenda in a conservative and elegant dress, and Willow in a little blue dress that made her look even more fragile. The courtroom was full. In addition to Gillian and her lawyers, there were several people from the town who came to support the family, and some who came only out of morbid curiosity. The judge, Dr. Clarence Walker, was a 55-year-old man known for being fair but strict. He listened first to Gillian's arguments. Your Honor, she said eloquently, we are dealing with a situation that puts a minor's well-being at risk. An ex-addict, 2 single men who suddenly got married, a questionable home environment. The child deserves stability, not social experiments. She presented Dr. Vance's report, which, as feared, was unfavorable. The psychologist had interpreted some of Willow's drawings as signs of anxiety and her responses about not wanting to leave home as unhealthy emotional dependence. The minor demonstrates signs of traumatic attachment, read Gillian from the report. She has excessive fear of abandonment and refuses to consider other life options. This is not healthy for her development. When it was the defense's turn, Dr. Hank Miller presented a completely different view. Your Honor, what we see here is not an anomalous situation, but a family that has formed through love and need. This child was rescued from the streets, cared for, loved and transformed. He called the witnesses one by one. Father Theodore testified about the transformation he had seen in the family. Willow's teacher spoke about how the girl had flourished at school, going from a withdrawn child to a participative and happy student. Dr. Peterson explained Willow's impressive physical and emotional recovery, but the most impactful moment was when Beverly was called to testify. Mrs. Jenkins, asked Dr. Miller, how many years have you worked at the Lancaster house? 10 years, Doctor. And how has the arrival of Brenda and Willow changed the dynamics of the house? Beverly looked at the family she had learned to love. Doctor, that house was dead for 3 years. After Mrs. Beatrice passed away, it became a mausoleum. Mr. Lancaster was just existing, not living. And now? Now it's a real home. There's laughter, there's love, there's life. Willow has brought light to all of us, and all of us have brought safety to her. Do you believe that this is the best environment for Willow? I believe it with all my soul. I lost a daughter, Doctor. I know what it's like to love a child, and I can guarantee that Willow is loved here as few children are loved in the world. When Beverly returned to her place, there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Finally, the most feared moment arrived. Willow was called to speak with the judge. The girl walked to the front of the courtroom, holding Brenda's hand tightly, but when she got close to the judge, she let go and walked alone the last steps. "Hi, Mr. Judge," she said with her clear little voice. "Hello, Willow. Do you know why you're here?" "I know. The mean lady wants to take me to live with other people. And you don't want that?" "I don't want to. I already lived without a family before, and I didn't like it. Now I have a family that loves me, and I love them too." "Willow, can you tell me what your life at home is like?" "It's good. Mommy Brenda teaches me about plants and sings to me to sleep. Daddy Archie takes me to see the furniture he makes and lets me help sometimes. Grandma Beverly makes delicious food and tells me stories. And Uncle Teddy teaches me difficult words and gives me hugs when I'm sad. And are you happy?" "Very happy. Before I was sad because nobody wanted me. Now I'm happy because everyone wants me." The judge leaned forward. "Willow, if you could choose, where would you like to live?" "In my house with my family. Please, Mr. Judge, don't let the mean lady take me away. I promise I'll be good always." It was then that something happened that changed everything. Willow began to cry, not a tantrum cry, but a deep cry from a child who had already lost so much and feared losing everything again. "I don't want to be an orphan again," she sobbed. "Please." The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Even Jillian seemed shaken by the child's genuine plea. The judge took a deep breath. "I'm going to analyze all the testimonies and evidence. The decision will be communicated in 48 hours. As they left the courtroom, no one knew what to expect. The only certainty was that their lives were in the hands of a man they had never met, and that the next 48 hours would be the longest of their lives. Willow, emotionally exhausted, fell asleep in the car on the way home. And while Brenda caressed her hair, everyone made the same silent prayer that love would be enough to keep their family together. The 48 hours that followed the hearing were the longest of everyone's lives. The mansion, which had become a home full of life and laughter, now seemed suspended in time, with everyone walking on tiptoes, as if any noise could break the fragile hope they still held. Willow immediately realized that something was different. The adults whispered to each other, stopped talking when she approached, and there was a tension in the air that made her restless. "Mommy," she asked on the first morning after the hearing, "why is everyone looking sad?" Brenda, who had barely slept, knelt down in front of her daughter. "We're not sad, my love. We're waiting." "Waiting for what?" "Waiting to know if we're going to continue being a family." "But we're already a family," said Willow with the simple logic of children. "How can we stop being one?" The question went unanswered because not even the adults knew how to explain that love sometimes wasn't enough in the face of bureaucracy and prejudice. Archie spent the entire first day in the office, trying to distract himself with work, but unable to concentrate on anything. Every time the phone rang, his heart raced, thinking that it could be the judge's decision. Teddy couldn't stand still. He walked around the house, went out to the garden, came back, sat down, got up again. The weight of the guilt for having started that entire situation consumed him. "If they take Willow away from us, it will be my fault," he said to Beverly one afternoon while they watched the girl play in the garden, pretending that everything was normal. "It won't do any good to blame yourself now," replied Beverly, but her voice was also filled with worry. "What's done is done. Now we can only hope. How can you stay so calm?" "I lost a daughter once," she said simply. "I know that revolting doesn't bring anyone back, doesn't change decisions already made. It just consumes us from the inside." Brenda was the one who was doing the worst. In the 2 days of waiting, she barely ate, barely slept, and several times Archie found her crying silently when she thought no one was watching. "What if I lose her again?" she said to her husband on the second night, using the word husband for the first time in a natural way. "I won't be able to survive that." "It's not going to happen," said Archie, hugging her, trying to convey a conviction that he himself didn't completely feel. How can you be so sure? Because I saw the judge's face when Willow spoke. He was touched. No one who witnessed that moment can think that separating her from us is the right thing to do. Gillian managed to convince many people that we're inadequate. Gillian doesn't know our daughter like we do. Doesn't know what she's been through, what she's accomplished, how much she has flourished with us. It was the first time that Archie called Willow our daughter so naturally, and Brenda felt her heart warm even in the midst of despair. On the second day, Dr. Miller called with information that left everyone even more nervous. Gillian filed a motion for an emergency order, he said. She wants that, regardless of the decision on permanent custody, Willow is removed immediately from your home and placed in a temporary foster family until the situation is resolved. Can she do that? Asked Archie, feeling the world collapse. She can try. The judge will decide about that along with the rest. But prepare yourselves for the possibility that even if we win the main battle, we may lose this smaller battle. What does that mean? That Willow may have to leave home today, even if it's to come back later. The news devastated the family. How to explain to a 4-year-old that she may have to leave today, but that she may be able to return later? How not to traumatize her more than she has already been traumatized? We're not going to tell her, decided Brenda. Not until we know for sure. But Willow, with the sharp intuition that children have, realized that something very bad was happening. She started following the adults around the house, refusing to be alone even for a few minutes. "Are you going to give me to other people today?" she asked suddenly during lunch on the second day. The silence that followed was revealing. "Please don't give me to other people," she said, starting to cry. "I promise I'll be good, that I'll eat all the vegetables, that I'll go to sleep early." "Willow, my love," said Brenda, picking her up in her arms, "nothing that is happening is your fault. You're already the best girl in the world. Then why do they want to take me away from you?" "Because sometimes people don't understand that families can be different," explained Archie. "They think there's only one right way to be a family." "But our way is right too," protested Willow. "For us, it is, and we hope that the judge also thinks it is." That afternoon, something unexpected happened. Gillian appeared at the mansion without warning, accompanied by a bailiff. "I'm here to pick up the minor," she said formally when Beverly opened the door. "With what authorization?" asked Archie, who had been called urgently. "Temporary court order," replied Gillian, showing the papers. "The child must be removed immediately to a foster home until the final decision." "This is absurd," exploded Brenda. "You can't just arrive here and take my daughter." "I can and I will," replied Gillian, "unless you prefer that I call for reinforcements." Willow, who was playing in the garden, heard the raised voices and ran inside. When she saw Gillian and the man in uniform, she hid immediately behind Archie. "It's her, isn't it?" said Gillian, pointing to Willow. "The mean lady you've been talking so much about." Willow began to tremble, clinging to Archie's legs tightly. "I'm not going with her," she screamed. "Please don't make me go." "No one is going to make you go," said Archie, but his voice trembled too. The bailiff approached. "Sir, please, don't make this more difficult. It's a court order." "An illegal order," protested Archie. "My wife is the child's biological mother. I'm the legal father. A marriage of convenience doesn't nullify the concerns about the minor's well-being," said Gillian. It was then that something extraordinary happened. Teddy, who had remained silent and guilty during the entire crisis, finally found his voice. "Gillian," he said, positioning himself in front of Willow, "you want to take this child over my dead body." "Teddy, get out of the way." "No, I made the mistake of trusting you, of thinking that you really cared about Willow's well-being, but all you want is to prove that you're right, regardless of how much suffering you cause. I'm doing what's best for her. You're destroying a family out of pride." Teddy turned to the officer. "Sir, this child has just come out of a traumatic hearing 2 days ago. She hasn't slept well. She's barely eating. Removing her now, even before the court decision, is pure cruelty." The officer seemed to hesitate. He saw a clearly loving family being torn apart. a terrified child clinging to the only adults she knew as parents. "My order is clear," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. It was at that moment that Dr. Miller arrived, running to the mansion with papers in his hand. "Stop!" he shouted. "I have an injunction suspending the removal order." Gillian paled. "Impossible. I just left the courthouse, and I just got an emergency hearing with the appeals judge. The removal was suspended until the final decision of the judge." Gillian looked at the papers, verifying their authenticity. Her face contorted with anger as she realized that she had been defeated in that smaller battle. "This isn't over," she said, heading for the door. "The main decision is still pending." After she was gone, Willow collapsed in tears in Brenda's arms. "She almost took me," she sobbed. "She almost took me away from you." "But she didn't," said Archie, hugging them both. "And she won't." That night, when Willow finally fell asleep in Brenda's arms, she had flatly refused to go to her own room. The adults gathered in the kitchen. "Thank you," said Archie to Teddy, "for finally taking the right side." "Sorry it took me so long," replied Teddy, "but when I saw that woman trying to tear Willow from your arms, I understood that it doesn't matter if our family is conventional or not. It matters that it's real." "The judge's decision comes out tomorrow," said Dr. Miller. "Prepare yourselves. It may be your last night together, or it may be the beginning of a new and safe life." "Which one do you think it will be?" asked Beverly. "Honestly, I don't know. But I know that you fought with dignity, love, and courage. And that counts for something." As everyone prepared for what could be their last night as a family, each carried in their heart the hope that love would finally be enough to overcome prejudice and bureaucracy. But the judge's decision was still to come, and with it, the fate of a girl who had found an unconventional but perfectly real and loving family. The third morning dawned with a heavy silence hanging over the mansion. Dr. Miller had called early, informing that the judge's decision would be communicated at 10 a.m. at the courthouse. The family gathered for a breakfast that no one could eat properly. Willow was quieter than normal, as if sensing that that day would define her future. She had made a drawing the night before, everyone in the family holding hands, surrounded by a giant heart, and held it against her chest like a talisman. "No matter what happens today," said Archie, looking at each member of the family, "I want everyone to know that these have been the happiest months of my life since I lost Beatrice." "Mine too," murmured Brenda, holding Willow's hand tightly. "Mine too," said Beverly, wiping away a tear. "This house came back to life because of you." Teddy, who still carried the weight of the guilt, approached Willow. "Sweetie, regardless of what happens, I want you to know that Uncle Teddy will always love you, always." "I know, Uncle Teddy," she said with her sweet voice, "and I will always love you too, even if I have to live far away." At 9:30 a.m., the family left for the courthouse. This time, an even larger crowd had formed in front of the building. The story of the girl who had found an unconventional family had touched the hearts of many people in the town. "Go Family Lancaster!" shouted someone from the crowd. "We're rooting for you," said another. Even Mrs. Hilda, who had been one of the main sources of gossip, waved shyly, seeming regretful for having contributed to that entire situation. In the courtroom, Gillian was already present with her lawyers, looking confident. Dr. Miller greeted them with a serious expression. "Remember," he said softly, "regardless of the decision, maintain dignity. If it's favorable, don't celebrate excessively. If it's unfavorable, well, keep your composure in front of Willow." When the judge, Dr. Clarence Walker, entered the room, the silence was absolute. He sat down, organized his papers, and looked at everyone present before beginning to speak. "This has been one of the most difficult cases I've ever judged," he began. "Not because the evidence was confusing, but because it involved questioning deeply rooted concepts about what constitutes a proper family." Willow was sitting on Brenda's lap, holding the drawing, her big eyes fixed on the judge. "Girl, do you know why we're all here?" "I know, Mr. Judge," she replied with her clear voice. "To decide if I can stay with my family." And are you sure who your family is? Willow stood up on Brenda's lap and pointed to each person. Mommy Brenda, who gave me life and loves me, Daddy Archie, who teaches me things and protects me, Grandma Beverly, who takes care of me and makes delicious food, and Uncle Teddy, who tells me stories and gives me hugs when I'm sad. And what if I said that there is a different family that can give you other things? But I don't want other things. I want my family. The judge nodded slowly. Mrs. Monroe, you argue that this isn't a suitable family situation. Would you like to comment on what you just heard? Gillian stood up, but for the first time since the beginning of the process, she seemed less confident. Your Honor, children don't always know what's best for them. This girl has been conditioned to accept an anomalous situation as normal. Anomalous in what sense? An ex-addict, a marriage of convenience, an environment that has been questioned by multiple people in the community. It was then that the judge interrupted her with a firmness that surprised everyone. Mrs. Monroe, allow me to share something. During my 20 years as a family judge, I've seen many conventional families that have destroyed children through neglect, abuse, or simple indifference. I've also seen unconventional families that have provided love, safety, and healthy development for children who had nothing. He turned to the Lancaster family. What I see here is a child who was rescued from the streets, who has recovered her physical and emotional health, who is developing academically, and who clearly loves and is loved by the adults who care for her. Gillian tried to interrupt, but the judge continued. More importantly, I see adults who have sacrificed themselves, who have changed their lives, who have faced prejudice and criticism, not for self-interest, but for the well-being of a child. He picked up a paper from the table. The report from the independent psychologist, Dr. Eleanor Vance, mentions traumatic attachment and unhealthy emotional dependence. But interestingly, when I requested a second opinion, Dr. Henry Foster, a specialist in child trauma, came to very different conclusions. Gillian paled. She didn't know about a second evaluation. According to Dr. Foster, Willow demonstrates signs of remarkable recovery from previous traumas. Her attachment to the current family is, in his words, healthy, secure, and appropriate for a child who has finally found stability. The judge looked directly at Gillian. Mrs. Monroe, your concern for Willow's well-being is understandable. But I have to question if you're not being influenced by prejudices about non-traditional family structures. Your Honor, Do you have children, Mrs. Monroe? No, but I have 3, said the judge, and I can say that the most important thing for a child is not to have parents who fit into social molds, but to have parents who love her unconditionally. He stood up, looking at the entire room. Considering all the evidence, all the testimonies, and especially considering the best interest of the minor, the decision of this court is... The silence was deafening. Willow held the drawing tighter. Brenda held her daughter tighter. Archie held his wife tighter. The permanent custody of Willow Olivera Lancaster remains with her legal parents, Archie Lancaster and Brenda Olivera Lancaster. Furthermore, I order that all investigations and questions about the suitability of this family cease immediately, unless there is concrete evidence of neglect or abuse. The explosion of joy in the courtroom was immediate. Willow began jumping on Brenda's lap, shouting, "We won! We won!" while everyone around cried with relief and happiness. Gillian left the courtroom without saying a word, defeated not only legally, but morally. But it was when they left the courthouse that the biggest surprise of the story happened. A man approximately 35 years old approached the family. He was tall, dark-haired, with gentle eyes and a nervous expression. "Excuse me," he said hesitantly. "Are you the Lancaster family?" "We are," replied Archie, still euphoric with the victory. "My name is Roger Collins," said the man, "and I think I'm Willow's biological father." The world seemed to stop again. Brenda paled, Archie tensed, and Willow looked confused at the stranger. "What do you mean?" asked Brenda with her trembling voice. "I dated a woman named Brenda 5 years ago. We lost contact when she started having problems with drugs. I never knew that she had gotten pregnant. Roger looked at Willow with a mixture of fascination and pain. When I saw your story in the newspapers, when I saw her picture, she has my eyes. She has the shape of my face. What do you want? Asked Archie, instinctively protective. Nothing, replied Roger quickly. I don't want to take her away from you. I saw what happened in the courtroom. I saw how she is loved. I just wanted to meet her. I wanted her to know that she has a biological father who never stopped loving her mother, even when she was lost. Brenda began to cry, but this time they weren't tears of fear, but of a complex emotion that mixed relief, longing, and a strange sense of closure of a cycle. "Roger," she said with a choked voice, you really came. I never stopped looking for you, Brenda. I never stopped hoping that you would get well. Willow observed the interaction between the two adults, trying to understand the emotion in the air. "Is this man my blood father?" she asked Brenda. "He is, my love. But Daddy Archie is still my heart father?" "Forever," replied Archie, kneeling down next to her. Willow looked at Roger with curiosity, but without fear. "Hi, Daddy Roger. Do you want to see the drawing of our family? I can make a bigger one and put you in it too." And so, 1 year after the accident that changed their lives, the Lancaster family had become even bigger and more unlikely. Willow now had 2 fathers, a mother, a grandmother of the heart, an uncle, and the absolute certainty that she was loved by everyone. At her 5th birthday party, celebrated in the flower-filled garden of the mansion, Willow blew out the candles, surrounded by all who loved her. When she was asked what her wish had been, she smiled and said, "I wished for our family to always stay together, because now I know that family isn't just who was born together. Family is who chooses to stay together." And at that moment, observing a girl who had transformed not only their lives, but also their concepts about love and family, all knew that they had found something more valuable than any wealth. They had found themselves through the unconditional love for a child who had arrived in their lives when they least expected, but exactly when they needed it most. Willow's story had become the story of all of them, a story of redemption, forgiveness, second chances, and above all, the proof that true love knows no social conventions and always finds a way to flourish. If you liked this wonderful story, please comment. Your opinion is very important, and if you love beautiful stories, subscribe to my channel. I promise to make your day better with my videos.